making time to chat with me. I mean, I'm doing a lot of these interview series, so I am very, very appreciative of your time. Why don't we start by you telling us what you do in the e-commerce space?
So yeah, good to be on here. I have been doing Amazon listing optimization and Amazon ads management since about 2016. We're very focused on the Amazon e-commerce space and just help brands with those two pieces of the Amazon marketplace.
Cool. And so I guess for the benefit of everyone watching this, you do run an agency of sorts. So I guess how do you differ from all the other agencies out there? And I mean, is there a bit of an origin story about your agency?
Yeah, so I mean, probably the biggest thing that sets us apart from other agencies is we're very focused on Amazon listing optimization. So most of the Amazon agencies out there, they might offer some listing optimization, but usually their focus is managing entire Amazon accounts or Amazon ads and things like that. So we've been doing the listing optimization as our main focus instead of just kind of a little side thing. So that's kind of what we're best at. And it all started from my own Amazon products. So I was an Amazon seller back in 2016, and I used these same things that are now in our agency on my own products. And I've since stopped selling those products and focused on the agency because that's just been doing really well. But that's kind of how I learned the chops of how to optimize things for high conversion rate and click-through rates on Amazon. What actually gets results?
Yeah, interesting. It's I'm thinking about the other interviews that we've done, and certainly a lot of other people are mentioning that content is becoming the forefront of everyone's mind. I think everyone knew it's important, but it's becoming like very clear that people are willing to really invest in that. And it's great to hear that your agency is like really focused on that. Now, I guess it brings me into my next point. So I guess the viewers don't know, but you're actually based in Bali. And I think you mentioned a lot of your clients are not even in, they're selling into Amazon, but they may not even be in that country. So what is the reality of selling into an Amazon country that you as the seller are not based in? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's really the beauty of the Amazon system that they've set up, is that they make it very easy for sellers to sell into a country that they have zero ties with. Amazon is your ties into that country. It's just such a comprehensive system they have set up with fulfillment and their website and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, you're right. A lot of our clients have no footprint whatsoever in the United States, but they sell millions of dollars worth of products to Americans. And that's just possible just because Amazon's just made it possible, right? They've turned what used to be incredibly complicated, getting a business entity set up and fulfillment warehouses and all this kind of stuff. And they just wrapped it up in a nice bow where if you want to sell in the United States, all you need is an American seller account. You don't need an American business entity. You can use your foreign business entity to sell in the United States. Once you have the seller account, it's just a matter of making sure your product gets into Amazon's warehouses and you have some listings up, and that's pretty much it.
Oh, awesome. It's certainly, like, as you say, packaged up in a way that actually encourages kind of cross-border activity and trade. But I guess given that it is kind of packaged up in that way, from your experience, like what are some of the key success factors that people who are thinking about this should think about? Like what are some key things that make it even more successful or more easy?
Well, so one of the big challenges, especially for international sellers, is what you might refer to as localization. So, for example, we have quite a lot of Korean clients, and some of them don't even actually speak any English, right? Some of them, the English is not so great, but some of them literally speak no English. We have to use Google Translate to talk to some of these clients. So you can imagine that if you can't speak any English and you have to create some listings that make sense to American customers, that's going to be very difficult. So working with some people or however you want to do it, just making sure that your product listings and your images and everything like that is localized to the marketplace that you're selling. And what works in the United States is going to be different than in Europe. And that's not just the language. I mean, obviously you have to translate the language, not through Google Translate, because sometimes that can come out a bit weird. We all know, right? But just weird little things too, like maybe in the United States, something is okay to show, but maybe in some countries in Europe, it's offensive to show like the same image you're showing in the United States. Like you got to make sure that it's suited for the market that you're selling to.
Yeah, look, I think that's some great practical advice, man. And I guess let's talk about the opposite of that. You know, where do most sellers fall over in that kind of scenario where they're selling into a country that, you know, they're not actually based in?
Yeah. I mean, luckily, there's not too many hoops with the United States, but I will say that it is a little bit different with the EU. A lot of people get tripped up with VAT, right? It's a little bit more difficult to get set up in the EU marketplaces, and that scares a lot of people away. But that being said, Amazon is making that easier still. They do now have a program that will actually help you get set up with VAT and meet all the requirements and everything. So unfortunately, you're going to have to fill out some paperwork and, you know, dot your T's and things like that, make sure everything's going good. But as long as you're working with someone who can localize your listings, and you know, the rest of the fundamentals of Amazon are really the same. As long as you understand how Amazon works and how to generate the sales on Amazon and rank for keywords and have good conversion rate, all of those basic things, then it doesn't really matter which marketplace you're selling into. The fundamentals of the system are the same.
Yeah, interesting. It is interesting as well that you point out the tax as the main complication where people kind of get stuck. And I'm kind of tempted to mention our mutual friend Nick from Hello Tax here who connected us. But yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people do talk about the tax as something that, you know, it's complicated and, you know, it's a little bit off-putting. Cool. So second last question, Danny. So what is your view on multi-channel selling beyond Amazon? Really, really keen to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, this is an interesting one too, because it's, my opinion's maybe an unpopular one. A lot of people will say, yeah, you might as well just sell on as many channels as possible. And that's great. That's free sales. But what a lot of people forget is that it can really strain your cash flow to be expanding to too many marketplaces. And usually, in most cases, these other marketplaces are going to have a fraction of the sales velocity and volume of your Amazon marketplace. That's what I've seen in hundreds of Amazon businesses at this point, that 95+% of the sales are going to be Amazon, mostly Amazon US. So every new marketplace that you expand to is one more place where you have to put inventory. And if that inventory is moving at 50% or 25% of the rate of your Amazon inventory, then whatever cash is tied up in the inventory is just getting a much slower return. Maybe it's going to take 3 months to turn over instead of 1 month, right? And that can really hurt a business. So like, I'll give an example of one of my friends. He's sells about 8 figures, and he makes up that exact same 95% Amazon, 5% other channels. And they went really crazy with expanding to other marketplaces, and then just really realized they had to scale things back, because now all of a sudden they have, you know, like 20% of their cash flow just tied up in places that's just moving very slowly, and it can really hurt the growth of the business. Because if they took that same cash flow and then just use that to expand to new products and expand their inventory within Amazon, then it would have gotten a return 3 times faster or more. So you got to be really careful with those kind of decisions. Take into account the cash flow. Don't just look at the one isolated variable of, can I increase revenue, right? That's not the only variable to look at here.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting view, and I appreciate the detail. You know, I was talking to, I think on my first interview with Jim, this guy called Jim, he just put it simply as, you know, bang for buck, time spent on Amazon equals, you know, best return on effort. So yeah, it's interesting to hear you echo that same sentiment. So my last question, Danny, you know, where do you see marketplace selling evolving to in the next 12 months? So I suppose based on your last question, that's specifically about Amazon, but where do you see it kind of changing and evolving to?
Well, so, I mean, I can speak mostly on Amazon. Where I see a lot of things happening on Amazon, a lot of it is towards Amazon ads. So Amazon ads is, I believe it's now the third largest online ads network behind Facebook and Google. And it's still fairly infantile compared to Google and Facebook ads. Like those two platforms are very complicated. They're very mature. And you know, you need someone very, very skilled to really do the complicated things on there. Amazon ads, by comparison, is a very simple platform still, but especially in the past 2 years, it has gotten a lot more complex than it was. So they have added a lot of features to bring it closer to something like Google Ads. And it's getting closer still, right? They have a lot of things that have been beta testing for a long time that are more complicated and things like that. And you can actually even target customers off of Amazon to bring them onto the Amazon platform through Amazon ads now. So it is becoming more of a robust way to actually gain customers. And I mean, a lot of brands are already at this point where you don't really have to leave Amazon's ecosystem to build your brand. And that's going to be the best way to build your brand. And I think Amazon is moving more and more towards that, right? And they have the Amazon Prime Video, right? A competitor of Netflix. That's another place that people are seeing the ads to go buy the product. They just have so many assets. They got Twitch, streaming network. They have so many assets that I think we're going to see Amazon move more towards a Google and a Facebook as far as what the ads players. And then it's just, next level of where it's at right now, even as far as ability to grow an e-commerce business.
Yeah, interesting. It's very, very interesting you see it that way. And I think you're probably not far from reality, especially with your point about having, so many assets where they can advertise products and kind of cross integrate all their business streams. It's very interesting. But look, we'll leave it there, Danny. I'm sure you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours about this. But again, thank you so much for making time. And if anyone's got any questions, just let me know. I'd be happy to connect you directly with Danny. And yeah, thanks again, man. Really appreciate your insight.
Well, it was great chatting and appreciate you having me on, James.